Let's talk some Virginia basketball. Chris Graham here on the podcast, and we'll start with we're towards the end of the exam break. Virginia's last game was December 5th, a 77-47 win over North Carolina Central. I'm recording this on December 15th. Tomorrow, December 16th, the Hoos are back in action, hosting Northeastern, a rare Saturday night late night game. So I say late night, a night game, 6 o'clock start on a Saturday. It seems like we always play at 12 or 2 or at the latest 4 on Saturdays. But ACC Network tomorrow night, Virginia gets Northeastern. The exam break is always that time of year. I remember there was one of the Pete Gillen years where, that Who's team went into the break with like an 8-1 or 9-1 record and came back and it looked like everybody had just eaten turkey over the 10 days they were off, and they were very flat or fat, as the case may be, right? But Tony Bennett's already had one 6-day break this season, and they came back from that break after the trip down to South Florida before Thanksgiving, and they played their best 3 games of the season after that break. The wins over Texas A&M, Syracuse, and then North Carolina Central. And so, it's one of those things. You play a lot of games, you take 6 days off, you play three more games in quick succession, you take 10 days off. Virginia gets this one with Northeastern, then early next week travels to Memphis for what could be a really big game for both those teams. And certainly a chance for UVA to get a resume win. But first, got to play Northeastern. Let's not jump ahead. Northeastern's 4-6 this season. They've also had a break for exams. Their last game, December 6th, the 73-71 loss to Vermont. Their best win in KenPom is East Carolina, and it's a pretty modest one. ECU is 186 in KenPom. Northeastern was picked 7th in the 14-team CAA preseason. One thing about this team, balanced scoring, 4 guys in double figures, 2 other guys just under double figures at the 9-point per game range, and 8 guys total who average over 6. So their guys put points up, and it's pretty evenly distributed. Not very big, at least individually. When you look at KenPom, when you look through their numbers, one thing, average height on the floor actually averages 34th in the country, but it's because their center's 6'7". They got a couple 6'8" guys, including one guy who's a bench guy. And then their starting guards, their backcourt 6'6". Both guys are 6'6", and their small forward is 6'6". So, 6'6", 6'6", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" is pretty much what they are. But just no 7-footers as far as that goes. The leading scorer is a guy named Chris Doherty. He's a center at 6'7", 11.9 points, 7 rebounds a game. The 4 spot is a stretch 4 guy, 6'8" sophomore Jared Turner, 9.8 points a game, but shoots 40% from 3. So you need to watch for him from the perimeter when he sets screens and pops back out there. Point guard is a 6'6" a guy named Rashad King, and the 2 guard is Luke Sakota, another 6'6" guard. One thing you'll notice about this team when you go through the numbers, there's a bunch of guys who shoot in the high 20s, low to mid 30s from 3. The 4 Turner is the best shooter from 3, and he's a 40% guy. So they don't shoot the 3 very well. When you look at the analytics, they play a similar pace as Virginia, a little quicker, but they'll play Virginia's pace whether they want to or not. Not very good defensively, 317th in KenPom out of 362 teams, allowing 1.11 points per possession. And KenPom projects the final score of this one, 73-56 Virginia, 94% win probability for what that's worth. And we'll see what it's worth, right? Some other Virginia basketball news and notes. I wanted to address a mailbag item. Got a email from a reader about one was about the lack of respect in the rankings. Virginia is now in both the writers and coaches polls. I don't know that in December it matters that much. This time last year, Virginia was as high as number 2 in the national polls. We saw how things ended. Got a 4 seed in the tournament, lost in the first round. Good season, 25 wins, ACC regular season championship, lost in the ACC title game. But what you do in December doesn't really maybe say what you're going to be doing in March. So, and I would even throw to the college football playoff. Look at the CFP. I mean, they had the CFP rankings had Florida State in the top 4 all season long. It seemed like. I mean, maybe after the first. Well, yeah, I have the first one of that doesn't come out until late October, I think. And then including the 2 weeks after Jordan Travis got hurt, FSU was in the top four. And then the selection committee dropped him to fifth, moved Alabama from 8 to 4 uh, after another win by Florida State without their starting quarterback for most of the season, Jordan Travis. And the committee's reasoning was, well, they're not as good as they were before. They were good for 2 weeks after he got hurt, but they weren't as good as they were before. So beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I like what I see out of this team for Virginia. Um, the tweaks that have been made, and we'll talk more about those a little bit later in the podcast, have got this team with a little bit higher ceiling than I thought. Certainly, the week of the trip down to Fort Myers, and so rankings don't mean so much. One other item. Um, Igor Milicic. I wrote a column about Virginia's 2022-2023 transfers in Francisco Cafaro, Isaac Trout, Caden Shedrick. We'll talk about that a little bit more as the podcast goes on. But I didn't write about the transfers from previous year's classes. Igor Milicic, one reader pointed out, hey, he's averaging 13 points, 9 rebounds a game, shooting 41% from three. Couldn't we use that? Milicic is a 6'10 guy who can shoot threes. Yes, we could use that right now. The starting center is a transfer coming in, the Jake Groves, who came in from Oklahoma, who's a 3-point shooter at 6'9", and Ryan Dunn at 6'8" is playing effectively. He's playing the 4 spot, the power forward spot, even though he's listed in the programs and everywhere else as a guard by Tony Bennett. 6'8" guy who can shoot threes, doesn't shoot them very well, but can shoot threes. Boy, wouldn't you love to have Milicic out there as the backup to at least the backup, perhaps, to Jake Groves. And yeah, he's putting some good numbers up there. In Charlotte, now I know Charlotte's a lower level down. He had 8.6 rebounds, 4 blocks against Duke in a loss last week, so he can put good numbers up against the big guys too. Talking more about the transfers out, we'll start with Caden Shedrick. He's the one that you think got away, but I'll tell you in a second who really is the one we let get away. Shedrick's putting up good counting numbers. As of when I wrote this piece earlier in the week, I haven't updated to see if Texas even played later this week. Shedrick was averaging 13.3 points, 4.5 rebounds, 66.7% shooting. But I pointed out in the column most of that damage, almost all that damage, was done against Texas's lesser opponents, and they've played a lot of lesser opponents. They've only played 2 games against teams ranked in the top 150 of KenPom, UConn and Marquette. And Shedrick missed the UConn game, so he didn't even get anything there. So he's only played in one of those games, and in that Marquette game, he had 6 points, 2 rebounds, and assist, block, 2 turnovers, and 3 fouls in 23 minutes. That's a lot of, unfortunately, what we saw out of Shedrick in big games at Virginia. He would do great in November and December, and then as the season wore on, he'd fall out of the lineup. I'm not saying that's going to happen to him at Texas. And in fact, for the kid, he's a UVA graduate. I hope for him that things do work out for him better in that sense. But right now at this stage, he's putting up good numbers against teams that probably aren't the ones that you would want to be bragging about if you're Shedrick. Now, I may end up clicking. And in fact, I should do this real quick. What the heck? This is a live to tape podcast. I should look and make sure. Has Texas played any this week? A lot of the top 25 are taking time off this week. So let's see. Let's go to Texas's numbers. Have they played since I wrote that column? And he'll probably have put up 20 against somebody really good. Texas is 19th in the polls, and let's see. Have they played? No, Houston Christian's still their last game, and that's obviously not an opponent that you would want to be bragging about. So, no, I mean, so Shedrick, I mean, and he, honestly, the way Tony wants to play basketball, Tony wants a 3-point shooter in the big spots. That's why I say that the one who really got away is the next guy we're going to talk about, Isaac Trout, who went to Creighton. Now, when I had these numbers figured out, he was averaging 7 points and 2.8 rebounds a game. I got to watch some of Creighton's blowout loss to a not very good UNLV team on Wednesday night. He scored 0 points, 2 rebounds, only got 9 minutes, none in the second half. feel bad for him there. Trout went back home. He's from Nebraska. He went back to Creighton, which is in Omaha, because he was homesick. Um, man, 16 of 31 from three, and 6'10" guy. We could use that. He'd at least be backing up Groves, and he might be starting for Tony Bennett this year. So it's a shame that we lost him. The other big that we lost, Francisco Cafaro, had a couple of double-digit games at Santa Clara to start the season out, and since then his numbers have kind of poppied where they'd poppy, right? Poppy is averaging 5.6 points, 5.5 boards a game, 18.5 minutes. He's doing this at Santa Clara, not in the ACC. Love Poppy. He could set screens. He was the next Jack Salt. It's just that the game got away from him. Tony Bennett he wouldn't play Jack Salt now. Jack Salt he'd probably be transferring out too. The game has changed a lot in the last 5 years. So of the four, if you want to include Milicic, and I'll go with my reader and say we should, it'd be Milicic and Trout. Man, if you have those guys, we'd be doing all right. But we got Groves. Jake Groves doing well. I think it'd be nice if we had a backup big who could hit threes. And we don't. And maybe rebound. And that actually, of all those guys, Milicic might be the guy. He's averaging the 9 boards per game. So in any case, I think that's we talked on the last podcast about the changes that Tony's made to the offense. I think it's interesting to see how things will go for this Virginia program. Coming back off the exam break now. I mean, I know there will be the game tomorrow, the game against Memphis, then a little bit of a break again, come back after Christmas, and then you go in a home stretch, pretty much all the way through. There's the one break in ACC play because of the odd number of teams. Everybody's got to take a midweek or weekend off. So there's at least one other period this season coming up where there'll be 6 or 7 days off between games. But other than that, it's all the way through. So it'll be interesting to see how Virginia comes out tomorrow night. For those listening before the Saturday tip at 6:00 Eastern, I will be courtside, so to speak. I'll be in the lower bowl at JPJ. That they don't sit us on the court and haven't for years at JPJ, but it still feels kind of like courtside. I'm at least in the arena. I'll be there for the game. We'll be doing live stuff there, I guess. I've been doing the live blogs on Facebook. We'll see if I do that again. Actually, I'm thinking out loud here again because not too many people have been joining me on that. But definitely the live coverage. I'll have a game story and column written right after the game. So sometime between 8:15 and 8:30, you'll have at least the first of those. And then, of course, the reactions from players and coaches thereafter. So, and then we'll get you ready for Memphis. Wish I was going down to Memphis, not going to Memphis. I'd love to get down there. I'd love to get some Memphis barbecue, maybe hit a honky tonk or two, but I'm not sure if I can justify another trip. Went to Nashville earlier this year, came back from Nashville with COVID. I don't think the wife is going to be too keen on another trip down to Tennessee as far as that goes. So any questions, anything you want me to address in a future column, anything, hey, news tips you got about Virginia sports? Feel free to please reach out to me. Email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.